Hello everyone, we're kicking off one more episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you very much for your participation. In case you've got questions to ask, please use the comment section on the left-hand side of your screen. We'll be glad to answer them during the debate. Today, we'll be talking about Thought, which is short word for thoughts, sentiments, and energies, the basic, integrated, inseparable unit of manifestation of consciousness in any dimension. Our ideas, feelings, emotions, actions, attitudes represent who we are in our daily interactions. But before we start our debate today, it's important to say the principle of disbelief. Don't believe in anything, not even in what we say here in our debate. Experiment, have your own experiences, right? To talk about thousands today, let's talk to the team. Leonardo Schneider is one of the guests today. Leonardo, how are you?
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Leonardo Schneider. I'm talking from Foz do Iguaçu. I work as a civil engineer and I've been a volunteer at Conscientiology since 2010.
Very nice, Leo. It's very good to have you to talk about thousands today. Cicero
Thank you, Mario.
Schumann.
Hello, everyone. I start to study these subjects related to bioenergies and things like this, to scenes that we are going to talk today, since 1993, when I knew at that time Conscientiology. So I come across to this type of knowledge and starts to study and research these subjects that I really enjoy. And I live in Germany. I'm from Brazil, but living in Germany now, and I work in the IT field. Okay, so it will be nice to discuss with you these topics today.
Very nice, Cicero. Good to have you. And we have a very special guest today, Douglas Pena from ASSIPI, Portugal. Welcome to Let's Talk, Douglas. That's your debut appearance here.
Hello, folks. Nice to meet you all. My name is Douglas. I'm based in Portugal, in the north of Portugal, in a state called Porto. I've known some Conscientiology since 2009. It's roughly, a few more than 10 years, give or take. And been a volunteer since 2010, and I've been in ASSIPI Portugal this year. So the theme of those scenes is something that really interests me. It's something that I researched for a while now, and glad to be here.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Douglas, for saying yes to our invitation. It's good to have you here today. I should also introduce myself, right? I am Mario Luna. I'm talking from Foz do Iguaçu. I've been working as a language teacher, also translator and interpreter. I first heard of Conscientiology a long time ago. It was in 1991, but only started working as a volunteer in 2005. I'm with ASSIPI. I've been with ASSIPI since 2018. I always say 1990. I don't know why, but 2018, right, with ASSIPI. People, that's right. This debate is based on Conscientiology, right? And it's important to say for the newcomers that Conscientiology is a neuroscience that studies the consciousness as a whole, right? Consciousness is me, is you, is everyone in human life, right? All self-conscious beings in intra and extra physical dimensions. Consciential paradigm is the paradigm in which we are based our studies, is focused on bioenergies, multidimensionality, pluri-existentiality, the multiple lives, right? Self-research, cosmoethics, universalism, and holosoma. Conscientiology has more than 20 conscientiocentric institutions, each of them specialized in a specific subject of research. ASSIPI is our institution. ASSIPI is a conscientiocentric institution specialized in the study, research, development, and the practical use of parapsychism, aiming at the nature, use of parapsychism, which is an indispensable attribute for consciential evolution, right? And ASSIPI English project is one of the projects of ASSIPI. ASSIPI English project is focused on promoting the ideas of conscientiology worldwide. people, let's get started with our today's topic, thought scene. Based on the theory of thought scene, there is no thought without energy, no energy without feeling, no feeling without thought. But Cicero, if we manifest ourselves through our thought scenes, that is, thoughts, feelings, and energies in an inseparable way, should we give way to energies only or also to the quality of what we think and feel?
Yeah, very, very nice question and correlation, because the main principle of the Tosins is that these things are all together. So in one moment, we have all together thoughts, sentiments, and energies. So the quality of what we think, it makes influence in our energy. And also important that our energy makes influence to the environment. So we are connected to our energies, we spread our energies in our interactions and so on. I think we can also discuss more about this. But important in your question is that we sometimes, if we think bad things, let's say, we could come to a frequency, we could come to a type of ideas and feelings and energies that we spread this and share this with other people, even though sometimes we don't say even a word, or we don't do a real different action, because tosin is a type of action. Yeah, we are a dynamic system. So this is important when we started to know more about it and how it works, these all things. I think we try to get a way to have a good pattern of thinking, and also keeping our energies and sentiments in a good standard. Also, this is positive not only for us, but also for everyone that we are living and interacting together. This is, I think, one idea.
Very nice. Douglas, would like to add something?
I think Cicero mentioned the main things there. It's very important to not disregard any aspect of the dosing. Sometimes we might perceive better the thoughts. Sometimes we might perceive better the sentiments. Sometimes the energies of an environment. But what is most important is that we pay attention to those signals. It's like whenever you're driving a car, and you see the speed and you see the RPM of the car, these are telling you things about how your car is behaving. And then you take actions upon that. So if you notice, for example, that your speed is too high and you notice there is a curve up ahead, it's time to slow down. And the same thing comes with those things. It's important to not judge them. It's important to not feel guilt or shame about those things that you have, but you analyze them. You try to understand, okay, why am I having this sentiment? Why am I having this thought? And then you take an action on top of it.
Very nice, Douglas. Leo, any comment?
Yeah, it's very nice to see how the feelings and the thoughts interfere in our energies, and this is a very important tool to have a self research. So these things show us our behavior, show us, and it's important to see how our behavior interacting with other people, because this shows, including when it's happening, things that are not from us, are from other consciousness, other people that are interfering in our thinking, are interfering in our sentiments. So this is a very important tool to do the self research.
That's good, Leo, to say. I would like to mention, right, the immanent energy, which is the consciential energy, is the immanent energy employed, right, by consciousness in thousand nations, which is the action of thousandate, or emit thoughts, sentiments, and energies in our manifestations in multidimensional the multidimensionality. So I would like just to take this conversation to a more practical side, which is when we go to places, right, and we interact with people and places, whichever, how can energies of people and places interfere in our routines? I have a story to tell, but I'd like to hear from you, this question.
That's a good question. Go ahead, Cesar.
Okay.
Can go.
Go ahead, Douglas, please.
Okay. So that's a good question, because in order to fully understand that question, to come up with a good answer for it, it's very important to know first who you are, right? So, and it's not something that is easy to do, because whenever you interact with those environments, with those places, it's not that you can observe yourself as a third person. You can observe, oh, here's myself, here's the environment, and then you can easily identify all of that. It's always going to come in a package. So sometimes you can go to a place like a healthy forest, or a place with a lot of eminent energies, that are energies that comes from basically nature. For example, a nice waterfall, or a very deep forest, or a river that is very alive, and so on. So there are a lot of those good sources of energies, and you might perceive yourself a little better, like, oh, I'm happier, I'm functioning better. And this tells you a little bit about your behavior. Sometimes you're going to go to a place and you might perceive some uneasiness, some kind of stress, some kind of different thoughts. And trying to understand those differences, it's very subtle. And needs for us to understand what are the gaps. So, for example, if I'm thinking in a particular way, I entered a particular location, and there is a step, there's a difference, and noticeable differences in my thoughts, in my energies, and in my sentiments. Then the question is, what happened? So you can understand that, did it change because of something that was in the environment, the energies themselves? Did it change because of a consciousness that was in that environment, and I interact with the energies of those conscious, and then because I have similar traits, I was reacting in that way? Or is it something else? Is it something that happened there that triggered my trauma, or something that happened with myself as a person in this life? So it's very subtle. And then you have to start raising hypotheses, you have to start digging deeper until you try to differentiate what is comes from the environment, what comes from others, and what is myself. And remember that all of this happens together, which makes things more difficult to come up with a straight answer for it.
I think Douglas mentioned some very important aspects of this inner state, inner way of thinking, internal harmony, or flow of ideas and sentiments that makes things happen. So when we talk about interactions, one very important aspect is how we are. This is exactly what Douglas was mentioning. So the first thing is not too much about the others, but we need also to know how we are, what we think about these different situations, about different people, about different beings that we are in contact, different places. So this can make huge difference. And of course, different places and people and others has also their own energies. So it's a type of then the interaction. Many times it comes with the energies, and the energies is a system. So like we are breathing all the time, is like that we have inputs and outputs, and the same is with energies. We are all the time sharing our energies, but also absorbing energies from the where we are, and sometimes energies is totally different from this aspect. So it's in a also keeps in a different dimension that we are mentioning. So we can connect with energies from very far different places, depends on more of the ideas or what we are connecting in the moment. But let's say in a easier way, that we are interacting with another people or in a different environment. So this, we have our own state of way of thinking, sentiments, and energy, and also we are interacting with the others. So these are things, it's important to understand how are our behavior and reactions to all these scenarios. And I think about this type of reflections, we can qualify our way of being. So little by little, we try to understand what are the points that maybe we can improve to not get sad or upset or afraid, or the things that change our self-esteem, or many things. I just mentioned some examples, but there are many, many, many things that we can perceive what changes ourselves when we are interacting with others. And also the pattern of our energies. So if we feel more comfortable with our energies, or sometimes we feel more tired, and so during the interaction. So these are things. There are, of course, techniques for us to improve, to make better this interaction, to keep our energies more in harmony, or to expand more our energies, or to absorb more energies from the environments. So these things, I think, are very helpful to develop also techniques for moving energies, and this helps for us this type of harmony that starts with the ideas. So it starts with what we thought. I think this is the starting point. Yeah, our own behavior.
Leo?
Oh, I just want to say we only can see and perceive this pattern changings in environment and other people. We can only see this changing if we deeply know ourselves, if we deeply understand ourselves and our behaviors and ourselves. So there is an huge importance of the immanent energies in this way, because when we are very contaminated with our toxins, when we interact a lot with other people and environments, we can absorb some immanent energies to clean up our toxins. So here, me and Mario are living here in Foz do Iguaçu, near the Iguaçu Falls. So every time I perceive my toxins very messed up, I do this technique and this exercise to absorb this pattern of energy from Iguaçu Falls. And this helps me a lot to clean up my energies.
That's right. And we have a comment from Jorn Schmitz about it, right? He says, "Hi guys, when I lived in Germany in a city, I only had a small garden. That was already good. Now I live in nature with a stream behind the house. The difference is huge." So this is exactly what you said, Leonard. I would like to tell a story, because when you said, the interaction we have, when we talk about energetic interaction, we are talking about interactions are actually based on a two-way communication, right? We affect the environment as much as the environment affect us, or the energies of the environment have affect us, right, somehow. But also the way we think and we feel. I remember one day I went to a coffee farm museum in Rio de Janeiro, in a city called Conservatória. It's a very famous farmhouse museum. And that was basically the Casa Grande. Casa Grande in Portuguese, in English, it's like, you know, the house where the coffee farm, the house of the coffee farm, right? So we have vast plantations of coffee, and we have the house of the family. And this house is a museum, actually. And as soon as I got in the house, I was before a huge, how do you say, a lobby with slavery utensils. And I was looking at them and said, wow, look at what the family got. They had slaves here. And this comment was accompanied with a bad feeling and a bad thought about that family. The repercussion of this comment, the repercussion of this fascination, right, I had before those utensils were terrible. I mean, the rest of the day I got headaches, I got nauseous, I got, you know, I went to bed at night to sleep. I had bad dreams. I came back to the house. You know, I had an out-of-body experiences. I came back to the house, and I was with the extra-physical consciousness of the house, dealing with them, and they were furious about me. I mean, the comments we make can do harm to people. This is very important because in Conscientiology we have a very important saying, which is, don't think badly about nobody, right? And this is serious. Don't think badly about nobody because we may affect them. I'd like you guys to make a comment on this, how important this saying is.
I think it's really important because and at the same time, for example, getting Leonardo's example, and this is true for me as well, like whenever you need to think clearer or become a bit better, you absorb energies from an immanent source that is closer to your house, or that you know that has good energies. So, and then you feel better, you feel more complete, you feel more at peace. The same principle applies whenever you're thinking bad of someone. You're gonna connect with that person, you're gonna send energies, and if the feeling is mutual, then you enter in a feedback cycle that the energies come back and forth and they kind of amplify. So although it's good to not think of bad of people, and it is also important to understand why you are doing this. So you don't repress those feelings, but you try to understand why you're behaving like that, so you can go in the cause, so you can change in the cause what's making you think like that. Sometimes it's a behavior that you learned from whenever you were very young age. Sometimes it's a behavior that you're mimicking from someone. And all of them is connected to who you are. But it's important to understand, face it, and then accept and change that way of thinking in order to become better.
Very well said, Douglas. Cesar?
Yeah. I realized many times when I have some bad ideas about somebody else, sometimes it's also connected to a selfish way of thinking. So I thinking more about myself is something I don't like, that I could think about bad of others. So one thing is to be critical. We need to be critical, yes. So we need to distinguish. We have to have discernment, what is good, what's bad. But one thing is for us to have this idea, this clear idea, this awareness about what's going on. And like you perceive, for example, there was slavery, so the energies and things. And in a situation that when we get this information, it's very important for us to know how to deal with it. So we can think that something is not good, but without we going the same pattern of energy. So if we think, for example, a fight is not good, but we are also against the fight, we are trying to fight against the fight, we are not helping nothing. We are getting things worse. So it's very nice when we try to have an overview of the things. So we are observing what's happening, and we try to be as more in harmony as possible in a good flow of sentiments that we could be helpful. We could be use our fraternal, so we could be lovely with the situation, even in a critical situation. I know this is in theory is very nice, very beautiful. In practice, are very challenged. So our day life are a challenge. So we need. It's good that we can every day try to understand little by little how we can improve the way of what we think, the way we have our feelings, and of course to improve our energy, to get more energy, to be stronger also, to help to clean environments with energies, and to be helpful with others, and also a type of protection for ourselves. So I think all these things are very interconnected.
Yes, I remember we have kind of a judgment, right? We have a very easy judgment when we say something's wrong, something's right. We have a very, an easy judgment. And when I saw that, the artifacts and tools for slavery, the first idea was, what an absurd, but, so it's a no situation, right? It's, as Cesar said, it's nothing to do. I was there just to check out exactly the culture of a time. And we are talking about 200 years ago, right? Which was a common practice at that time. So no judgment at all. But just, extending and stretching out this topic about objects and so on, right? I'd like, unless Leo, do you have something to say about the topic we were
No,
carrying
no,
on?
no. It was
That's fine.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
that's fine.
just like to ask a question, Leo, about the objects, right? Because actually, we know that the objects carry the thousands of people who use it, right? Because the energies are impregnated in objects, and also not only places but in objects. So let's talk about this thing, right? The object. So the care we should take when we buy something, when we have something from some people, or the energy of the objects we may buy, especially in second-hand shops or antique shops and things like that. So I would just like to go through the energies of the objects now and how we can cleanse them.
Yeah, I think there are two ways to think about the objects. The first thing is what pattern of energies the object carries itself. So the history that had beyond this object. But the other thing to think about it is what this object represents for me. So this object can make me remember some fact in my life, some history, some trauma, and what this represents for me as an emotional way. The medical studies can prove that our emotions can harm ourselves. So the way we interact with these objects and what these objects make me remember in my history can make deep damage for me. If these objects carry some things that make me remember bad things in my life. So and the intention, the other thing to think about it is what was the intention when someone gives you a gift, for example. So what kind of intention there is when someone gives you something, and what the kind of energy it represents for you, and what can this pattern of energy can cause for you. So there is many different ways to think about the influence of the energies of the objects.
Yeah, this is interesting, Leonardo, what you mentioned, what the gifts and things. For example, objects from ex-boyfriends or girlfriends. Sometimes there is a meaning in that object. The object by
Yeah.
itself could be neutral, but
But
sometimes
for example,
if you
I'm sorry
receive,
to I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for example, a necklace. So someone can give you this gift because this person wants to control you. So what's the intention to give you a necklace?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There is a lot of things, and so sometimes we need to think what objects we should discard. Sometimes it's something good we like, we use, but sometimes the energy is not so clean for our new moment of life. So if we want to change our lives, if we want to make changes in our lives, sometimes some objects are not more compatible to what we are thinking or what we are planning, what we should give value. Now, I say should give value because the value is what really we are. But sometimes we think about that ideas, but we don't put in practice. So sometimes objects could be discarded, even if there is you lose money or something, but sometimes it's the best. What's the problem? You will be better if you lose that money. Yeah, let's say only thinking about the financial aspect. But other things also about objects, and you already started to mention it. Leonardo also mentioned, but objects, for example, that has very sentimental aspects related to some relatives, sometimes from the grandmother or the grandmother that keeps in the family that object, and they are a special place also in the living room for that object. And sometimes these are not the best, so sometimes they have a history, that object. I'm not saying that everything that's from the family needs to be out. No, there are nice things, there are good things, there are objects that also brings good energy. We are saying bad energies, but because sometimes it's easier to just perceive. But of course, there are objects that could bring good energies. But in general, I could say it's better for us to have our own energy, or interacting with our actual family, our wife, or so these things sometimes we create new energies and new objects. Many times are they have preference instead of old objects. So this we all need to think. Every old object is not only the object with the history, but the history together with the energies that represents all the history of that object. So this is something that the objects can be cleaned, but sometimes we don't need to put effort to try to clean something that sometimes needs more than one entire life to clean something. It's just sometimes better to change. So making change sometimes are very welcome.
If I may add to the discussion, this is a very interesting topic because it's one of those that you have like multiple levels. So one of the main, besides the energies, because if you think about it, when you use an object in a certain way for longer periods of time, for example, you're going to imbue that object with that particular energy. So, for example, if you do have like an office or a desk where you sit and you do things, you study, write on that thing. When you go there, it permeates the object with these types of energies. So when we receive an object from another person, from an entity, it may contain those energies. And we, for example, we could exteriorize our energies to clean the object over time. Sometimes it would be easier, sometimes it would be more difficult. But there's something that is extremely important as well regarding our connection. And this is, I believe, is one of the, when you go on a deeper level. For example, let's take the necklace, the ex-boyfriend necklace as an example. So the thoughts that connect with that can be completely different, right? You can keep the necklace because it reminds you and all the memories and from the previous relationship while you are in a new one. So why are you doing that? So is it the object the problem or the connection the problem? So if you get rid of the object, the necklace, does the thought goes away as well with them, or the thoughts keep? So it's important to analyze the level of connection. And I believe this is connected with the question that Adrian Nelson just asked about, is it possible to put energy in an object to protect someone? It's really connected to that. Because if you think about it, for example, imagine that you are in the opposite scenario, like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of energy from someone else, and then you go there, destroy, you burn, you bury, you do everything to get rid of the objects, so you can get rid of the energy. But what if the other way around? What if the object comes, your object is in the possession of another person, and that person is sending bad thoughts for you? So you're doomed to have those thoughts reaching you until the end of time? Not likely, because it's more important that what connects you with the person. So for example, if you end up in a bad place with bad notes in that relationship, and you have feelings of hate or feelings of disgust, anger, and you connect with the person with that, whenever they think of you with those type of energies, it's going to resonate with you. But if you're able to revisit those emotions, work on them, forgive the person, and assign a different meaning for that, a kind of love, a kind of forgiveness to the person. If they think about you, it's not going to resonate. So it's kind of the energy comes and goes back to the person. So you don't feel the effects of those energies. And why is it connected with the energy in the object? Because people used to do this in the past. Whenever I'm going to create a talisman, an amulet to give energies to someone or to protect a place. It's more of I would say, a clutch. It's like a tool, a technique, using the object as a reference. So, if that person is with that object, I am with this object, therefore I have the power. But it's not the object itself, it's more about the thoughts and energies that go along with it, in my understanding.
Very good, Douglas. Very good. We have one more question from Juliana Branco. Thank you, Juliana, for your question. She asks, what do you think about the different susceptibility to be influenced by different types of thozines? For example, someone may be influenced by a thozine of an object, but others won't.
I can start because it's kind of connected, but I asked Professor Cicero Leonardo to add as well. I think it's a good question because different people will react differently to different things. So, for example, if you have a trauma, if you have your retro lives or previous lives connected with a particular group, for example, imagine that, taking the examples from Mario, for example, if I was a slave trader and I was in that room, I would feel the energy in a completely different way. If I was someone that fought for freedom, that tried to liberate the slaves in that location or from that period, I would perceive the energies in a completely different way. So it's interesting because you have, like whenever you're analyzing your energies, if you go into environments and you perceive the interactions of the energy with yourself, the same thing goes with objects. each object has a history. It connects with different people in different ways. So an object, for example, that can be very good for you to be in contact with, for another person, it makes no difference. So that's very good to think about, I believe.
So I'm a bit worried about the artifacts of the slavery I judged as badly, and I had a bad repercussion now. Okay, just adding. Cecil.
Yeah. There are also aspects when someone reacts different from the objects. There's many aspects also interconnected, but one is that also some people has more sensibility to energy, so they interact easier. They are connected easier to the energies of one object than others. Yeah. Additionally to all these aspects that Douglas also mentioned, that is very connected to the personal aspect. So I think maybe these are really the most important. Yeah. So some objects, sometimes they have relationship with us with a type of what we call also interpretation, when we are very interconnected, sometimes in a not good way, not in a freedom way of thinking, with some ideas of something that happened in the past, or some connections with groups or ideas that is part of our history. And sometimes we are trying to disconnect, but some objects, they have a specific way to come us always to that same pattern. And some people don't react to this because they are not dealing with this dilemma anymore. Yeah, so, or they don't have this type of dilemma, they have others. So some objects can make more impact for someone's than others. Yeah, for example, someone is trying to not drink too much beer, and someone comes with a bottle of beer and put on the table. For some people will react in a way, some other don't care. What is just a bottle of beer? Yeah. So I just using a simple example. It could be many more complex things. That depends sometimes what is the level of interpretation that we have with some ideas that is part of our past, and we are in the movement of changing that pattern. Yeah, so I think this is also related to this.
Yes, so as you said, well, it's a good example is someone who's trying to stop drinking beverages, right? For example, alcoholic things and so on, and the person keeps the bar at home, because here in Brazil was very famous in the 70s, the 80s, for people to have bars. Sometimes they were actually pubs, because you have the stools, you have 100 bottles of beverage, wines and whichever, and it's hard, for you to keep, stop smoking, stop drinking, having this kind of things, a winery and so on at home. So it's a lot harder. Leonardo, any comment on that?
Oh, I just want to add something, because every object we interact will resonate with our inner content. Because if we have some history with this object, or this object represents something in our history, this will influence a lot. And sometimes we can perceive the bad pattern of this object, the bad energies attached to this object, but sometimes this object makes some attachment for us. We're attached with this object. For example, a watch from my grandfather. So I cannot perceive the bad energy attached with this object, because I have an attachment with this object. So this confuses me. This complicates my discernment, because I have an attachment with this object. But so this it's complicated to do I don't know, a psychometry of this object, because it represents something for me that makes difficult to do this psychometry.
Yes, I was just making the most of your answer to ask Douglas a question, but it's just one more topic for us to talk about, which is the following thing: to qualify our 13s, right? Some basic techniques to mobilize energies, like basic mobilizations of energies and the triggering of the vibrational state, are suggested, advised, but more importantly, it will be, I would say, first and foremost, to qualify our thoughts and feelings, right? Because there's no point in cleansing energies if our thoughts and feelings are dirty, contaminated, intoxicated. So, Douglas, could you go through it, please? This idea?
Yes. So the vibrational states, for those who are coming here for the first place, is a technique where you move your energies in a very intense way until your energetic body starts to vibrate. And one of the aspects that the vibrational states do, one of the things that it provides or that has a repercussion in you, is that it makes your own energies more dominant around you. So, for example, if you have a dosing or some part of an intrusion that is not deeply connected with your core, whenever you install the vibrational state, the tendency is to get rid of those things that are not very close to you. So, for example, when you absorb energies, you start the exercise absorbing energies from the nature, from forest, from a waterfall, and then you do the vibrational state. What you're actually doing, you are imprinting that pattern throughout your whole energosphere, together with the good energy that you have absorbed. So it amplifies the effect of calmness that is associated with the immanent energies. And something that is important to also point out whenever you do the vibrational state, when you really do in a really deep level, is that many things that are you will come up. So it's normal, it's expected that you started to perceive, for example, things that you did not remember, few traumas that happened with the past, and so on. And that is completely fine. You just continue working with your energies, trying to analyze and understand what comes up for you, because in a nutshell, you'll be in a better state to handle with the shock that is associated when you face those events that were traumatic for you in the past. And if you think about intrusions, for example, or if you do the vibrational state, you're not dealing with 100% of energies that are not yours. At least you'll be dealing with, if there are intruders, if you imagine that you don't do the vibrational state perfectly, right? You're gonna deal with the energies from yourself and the intruders that are closer to you. So when you do the recycling of those scenes, you're going to be helping yourself, you're going to be helping the intruder, you help everyone. And if you continue doing the vibrational states, the energies associated with that transition, that recycling of your thoughts, they will reverberate. So everybody wins.
Yeah, I was thinking about a situation that, for example, could be for any situation, but let's get the example of when we are reading a book. There are some moments that we are reading the book and seems that we don't get easy the content, or sometimes it's even more difficult, or we read 3 pages and then we are not totally sure about what we read, so sometimes we need to make to read again or things like this. And there are different moments where it seems that we are in a very good flow, seems that things go very peaceful in a way that we are totally concentrated. We read faster, we read getting more the content. Seems that we are much more intelligent at that moment. But the main aspect is that our state of mind in that moment is in a different level of harmony and concentration. We are with our toxins, things that in a way that helps things glow in a good flow. And I think it's good for us to try to understand how can we improve our standard. Why not standard is not that level that we can reach. So I think this is something that we can try to think ways to change. Sometimes it's creating a field more positive of energies that makes our way of thinking go in a better flow. And sometimes we are, for example, in a moment of life that we are like a nightmare, everything happens. And if we try to do things with that way, sometimes it's not uh, going to have good results. Sometimes we are not going directly to the priority. If we perceive our two sins, our thoughts, sentiments, and energies are not good at the moment, maybe it's a priority for everything that we want to do at that moment to focus on how we establish the good standard and then go in a flow. And some people sometimes just keep doing things that are not going well and things, and sometimes get even worse. And I think when we start to understand the interconnections and all these things together, sentiments, energies, and our ideas, it can be more priority for us to keep this in a good way, to keep our good toxins. And this we are going to have more results, our performance in everything. Our performance related also to emotional aspects, related to creation of new ideas, or even our interaction with others could be in a different way. So these things, it's important for us to do this when things are going sometimes, but keep this in mind that this can be a priority. I think this is important to be a priority.
You any comment? That's fine. I would like to advertise our weekly meeting, which is the Psychic Encounter, right? The Psychic Encounter is an activity held in English every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. here at ASSIPI, right? It's a round of discussions proposed and based on projections of the consciousness book and other parapsychic experiences, and especially other parapsychic experiences, because in this meeting, right, we have a group of people talking about their experiences, parapsychic experiences, paraphenomenology, and so on. So if you want to participate, please go to ASSIPI website and go to assip.org/loja and just make your registration over there. You'll be very welcomed. It's a very good activity in which we share experiences, we share contents, a very interesting topic, which is our extra physical life, our parapsychism, right? Okay, the next
it's a free activity. Just talking about that, it's a free activity and it's a very informal chat. So it's everyone are welcome. Don't have any prerequisite to join that psychic encounter. So you are all welcome. Just contact ASSIPI and we send you the link to join this activity.
Very good, Cicero. We have a very special event in August, which is the International Weekends of Conscientiology, right? This is an event entirely held in English. And the main topic this year will be universalism. It will be 3 days connecting intermissivist researchers around the world, right? And we have a 3-day activity. It starts on Friday, 14 August, right? We have the Introduction to Conscientiology course by Isaac, right? The presentations of the International Journal of Conscientiology, right? The authors of article, including me, will be there presenting the article in the topic of the article, right? And also the meet the authors, presentations of books published in different languages. So have people coming from other countries as well. On Saturday, we have living Living with Universalism workshop, volunteer around the world presentation. And on Sunday, 16 August, we have a round table debate, but also a very important event. It's not mentioned here, but it's International Agora, right? It's a hybrid event. We'll have people in person and people online talking about the best practices for the internationalization of conscientiology. So if you work in your conscientiocentric institution in an area of internationalization, you can't miss it. You can't miss this meeting on Sunday, right? I think it begins at 4:30, at 4, from 4 p.m. to 5:30, I think. But check out the program of the event and participate in International Agora. We'll be there talking about the internationalization of conscientiology. This is very, very important at the moment. And I would like to finish our conversation today, right? Talking about the following thing. Douglas said something that for me is very, very important at the beginning of the conversation today, which is the importance of self-knowledge, the importance of self-research, right? Because when we interact with energies, wherever you go, we'll have, you know, a wide variety of energies. So how can we differentiate our energies from the external energies? Because sometimes you are very well, and then you go to a place and all of a sudden you start thinking, you know, bad things, or you start feeling bad and so on. How to say, oh, wait, it's not my fault. It's not my feeling. I was okay 5 minutes ago. So there must be some interaction going here. So, but for us to be able to do it, we should, right, get into our self-research to know more about ourselves. So let's wrap up our conversation today, people, talking about the importance of self-research. Would you?
There's not much you can do without self-research, really, because it's very common. For example, it's very easy for us but I'm acting like this. Oh, it's because where I am, because my work, because my partner, because my friends, because it's so easy. And remove the responsibilities from ourselves. It's not easy to always stay thinking like that, but self-research brings the power back to you. Being, what is making myself react to this? Why am I thinking like this? So instead of thinking like, this happened to me, therefore I am a victim. So, this happens to me. Okay, I interpreted it this way. And it's important to know that difference, because it's connected with also biases. So I reacted to something, and sometimes that initial reaction, we identify, that was my parapsychic perception. It was not. It was just your own natural biases. So how do you differentiate between your biases and the actual parapsychic perception? So it's very difficult, and it's not possible to do that without self-research.
Great. Leo, any comment?
No, it was perfect what Douglas said. It's okay.
Good. Cicero?
Oh, fine. Yeah, so it's really important, this, just to emphasize the idea Douglas mentioned, responsibility, to have the self-responsibility, and to assume that many things are ours and not from the others. I think this sometimes is, we prefer to say that the others have problems, and yeah, we need to make reflections.
Very good, people. Thank you very much, Leo, Douglas, Cicero, and the participation of everyone out there. The next Let's Talk will happen August 28th. We'll be talking about parapsychic self-experience, right? Don't forget, our institution is specialized in parapsychism, and this is the topic we'd like to talk about most. So the next Let's Talk will be about parapsychic self-experience. I see you there. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a nice weekend. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.